What is up, guys? I'm back with more picks and predictions. This weekend, we have Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi at UFC Edmonton. This is a matchup that matters to the flyweight division, especially if Amir Albazi wins. He's on a pretty good win streak, and if he gets this one done, then he should be up for the next shot after Kaya Sakura, I'm pretty sure, in the flyweight division. But yeah, let's break this card down. We had a great card at UFC 308. I know a lot of people went on that card. Pretty easy card to predict. Lots of favorites won. That's normally how Abu Dhabi works. And yeah, we're going to jump into the recap. Made a fuck ton of profit on UFC 308 and then hop into predictions for Amir Albazi versus Brandon Moreno. All right, so to recap our card for UFC 308, we had an amazing card, probably one of our best cards in recent history. By the way, guys, Premium has now been profitable all the way up until the card right after UFC 306. So the last card we lost money on was the Sphere at UFC 306. Since then, we've been profitable every single card, absolutely printing units. And yeah, let's jump into the recap here. We had our biggest bet, which was 2 units on Shara and Topuria moneyline. I was very confident in Topuria. I was confident early on in Shara. Throughout the week, lost a little bit of confidence knowing how good Armand is on the feet. But, Shara gets it done with that crazy double back fist, whatever the hell knockout he got. So 2 units on that, cashed in at plus money, plus 136 on that 2-leg parlay. It's pretty confident in a boost. I thought he always had more paths to victory with the wrestling, and it did show. I mean, Bruno Ferreira did rock him in that second round, but he just kind of went straight to the wrestling. They was able to get the sub, cash in a unit on him at 138. I like those odds. Ankalaev and Murphy had a 2-leg on their money lines, another unit on that. Murphy's was close, I mean, that fight gets scored differently every weekend. So interesting to know. I think Murphy obviously won that fight. I think it comes down to damage, but when you look at a fight like that, then a fight like Batista versus Aldo, where Aldo definitely does more damage, but Batista gets the control time, and they give it to Batista. And then Batista saying things like, he shouldn't have held that position. It's kind of weird, super contradictory, because, Murphy was in a bad position, getting controlled quite a bit in the third round. Basically won the round in the last 15 seconds of that round with a flurry of punches. So yeah, Ankalaev, Murphy win that. Murphy was pretty close, but I think he did do enough to win the fight. Lost to Chimaev and Oralbai 2-leg on that Oralbai fight. That fight was amazing, so don't mind watching that fight, but sad to see Oralbai get absolutely destroyed. I mean, the fight was closer, but, he did get super fucked up in that fight. So that 2-leg lost. Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Cerqueira under 1.5 rounds is absolute money. 1.25 units on that. Easiest bet we hit the entire night. Freed Basha by decision at minus 150. I think that was a lock. That was also the lowest payout bet we placed the entire night, but I did think it was a lock from the jump. Put a unit on that. And then Topuria by KO at plus 180. Only half unit on that. Was the smallest bet of the night because Max has never been knocked out, but I did feel good that Topuria's power is different, and he was able to get that knockout in the third round. So overall, we had 7.5 units in, and we made a net profit of 6.33 units. Absolute insane ROI last week. And yeah, let's jump into the predictions for Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi at UFC Edmonton. But definitely, guys, check out the premium kopicks.win. It's $20 a month, and like I said, we've been profitable every week since the Sphere. We've been absolutely printing units. So yeah, let's move on to the predictions. All right, guys, so first fight on the card, we have Jack Shore versus Youssef Zalal. Now, I actually like Youssef Zalal in this spot. I think he is fairly affordable as well at his odds. But I think this is going to be an interesting fight. We've seen Youssef Zalal look really good, especially recently since he came back into the UFC. He's coming off that first round rear naked choke on Jarno Arians. Before that, he had a rear naked choke in round 2 versus Billy Q. So he's been looking good, getting finishes, getting submissions since he came back. And then Jack Shore, on the other hand, is coming to that loss to Jourdain Brito, where he got absolutely destroyed with leg kicks. And then there was that doctor stoppage with, the doctor doing weird things by really just messing up his cut on his shin. So he's coming off that loss to Jourdain Brito, but we know Brito's pretty good. And yeah, I mean, I think Youssef Zalal is pretty good in this spot. I'm going to pick Youssef Zalal to win. I think he's better everywhere, especially if he can start wrestling in this matchup. I think he is live for a submission as well. Once again, that's always something he is going to be live for. And I think that in the striking, he is just a little bit more elusive, has better footwork. Jack Shore probably has a better pure boxing in this matchup, but I think that, Zalal can kind of point fight on the feet a little bit. I think if it is purely on the feet, the fight will be close, though. I definitely think Jack Shore and Youssef Zalal are fairly even when it comes to striking. But I think that in an MMA match with the wrestling and the grappling as well, Youssef Zalal is just going to be better. The wrestling will be there for him if he can get it going. So I'm going to pick Zalal to win this fight. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, now up the card, we have Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Ivana Petrovic. And you guys are going to see this a lot, especially in these fight nights near the end of the year, in Q4 of the year especially. So the UFC is contractually obliged to offer every fighter on their roster at least 3 fights a year. And then near the end, fighters that they just decided not to matchmake for a while, didn't really care to matchmake, end up getting fight offers near the end of the year. And you see a lot of fights that, people don't really care for. I think this is definitely one of them. Now, Jamey-Lyn Horth is a minus 200 favorite in this matchup, and I think I'm going to go with her for my pick. I think she does get it done against Ivana Petrovic this weekend, mostly because on the feet, she's definitely much bigger. She definitely has a lot more power. Will be landing with more intent than Ivana, and probably landing more than Ivana in general. But Ivana Petrovic is definitely the better wrestler in this matchup. I think if she can get the takedowns going, then she is definitely very live. But I think Horth is a big girl. It's going to be hard to take her down. And when it comes to that, I think that she'll just be able to keep this fight on the feet, where she definitely dominates. All right, now up the card, we have Chad Anheliger. I think I butchered his last name, versus Cody Gibson. And Cody Gibson's a minus 200 favorite here. I'm going to stick with the favorite, at least for this fight. Continuing, I think Cody Gibson does get it done. Now, both these guys are a little bit older. They're both 37 years old. And, Cody Gibson does have a solid reach advantage here, 71 inches to Chad 64. So he does have a solid reach advantage. It's going to be much longer. I think he can keep Chad at bay. I also think that Chad likes to kind of stay at range when he strikes. So he's going to have to crash in, which is not going to be like normal to his fighting style, at least on the feet. I do think, though, that Cody Gibson is long. I think Chad has good jiu-jitsu, which means that I think Chad is going to be live for a submission, potentially. I think if there is danger to this fight, it is by sub. On the Chad side, he does have pretty good jiu-jitsu. So, that's always possible, but I think Cody Gibson can get it done. I think the reach advantage is going to be too much. The height advantage is going to be too much. And he's going to be bigger and longer and hold Chad at bay. And, yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, now, next fight on the card, we have Sidey versus Garrett Armfield. This is a pretty good matchup. I'm going to take the Canadian here in the Edmonton card, Sidey to beat Garrett Armfield. Now, I like Garrett. I think this fight stays on the feet for the most part. I think on the feet, Sidey can just kind of pressure strike Garrett Armfield the entire time, stay in his face. He has that 2-inch reach advantage, so maybe you can catch him right at the end of that jab and just kind of stay at that range the entire time. But I think he stays in Garrett Armfield's face. I think if Garrett decides to wrestle, this fight can get interesting. But, I think Garrett Armfield, for the most part, he also doesn't get knocked out. So I think this fight definitely goes to decision. He's also a tough guy, Garrett Armfield. So I feel like Sidey by points is probably a pretty good play here. I like Sidey in this matchup. I think it stays on the feet, and I think he does better than Garrett Armfield on the feet. So, yeah, that's why, most likely, I think this fight does go to decision, though. All right, now, next fight on the card, we have Alexandr Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Now, this fight is a pick 'em fight. I think it's exactly pick 'em now. Maybe some books have Romanov as a slight underdog at plus 100 or something like that. So, yeah, for the most part, pick 'em fight here. I'm going to go with Rodrigo Nascimento to win, and I'll tell you why. I think when it comes down to this fight, I think that Alexandr Romanov is definitely live earlier on in this fight. I think Rodrigo Nascimento is a much better decision fighter than Romanov. So if this fight does go the distance, Romanov definitely loses, in my opinion. I think Rodrigo Nascimento is much more live to win a decision. I think if Romanov wins, he does get an early finish or something like along those lines. Now, it's a pretty mid matchup. I mean, both these guys are pretty trash, pretty ass. I don't really care for this fight. Shitty heavyweights especially is like the worst type of fight to watch. But, I like Nascimento. He's at American Top Team. I think he's okay everywhere. He's okay on the feet, okay on the ground. Similarly with Romanov, I think Romanov, like I said, better finisher. Don't have much more to add to that. I think he is a better finisher. If something does end at a finish, I think it'll probably be an early finish for Romanov. But if, that doesn't happen, which I just, I don't see it happening, then Rodrigo Nascimento, I think, can definitely take over later on in this fight and come through with the decision. So if this goes to points, it's definitely Nascimento. If it ends early, I think it's Romanov. And yeah, I'm going to say that Nascimento gets it done, probably by decision. All right, now, next fight on the card, we have Charles Jourdain versus Victor Henry. This is another basically pick and fight for the most part. And, I think I'm going to be all over Victor Henry in this matchup. I just don't think that Charles Jourdain is that good at all. I think Victor Henry's actually plus 100 on most books, so he's a slight underdog. And I'm going to go with the dog here. I think Victor Henry gets it done. I think Charles Jourdain is just mid everywhere. And, I actually like Henry. I think he's pretty good. I think he's slightly better than Jourdain for the most part. I think if Jourdain wants to take it to the ground, obviously Jourdain will be better, but it's hard to take Victor Henry down. I think on the feet, he's a lot higher volume. And the only thing I don't like about Victor Henry in this matchup is that he's 37 years old. But overall, I think that if Jourdain wants to try some takedowns, I think Victor Henry can stop those. And then when it comes to just staying on the feet, I think Henry will just be more active. And I don't see Jourdain knocking Henry out. And I think that maybe the speed advantage. But at the end of the day, I mean, I just don't like Charles Jourdain. I think he's pretty ass. And, I like Victor Henry. Like I said, only problem with this matchup is that he is 37 years old. So that is something to keep in mind. But I like Victor Henry. I'm probably going to play him here at plus 100, to be honest. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, now, next round on the card, we have Ariane Lipski versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. And I'm going to go with the favorite here. I'm going to go with Jasmine to get this done. I actually do like Ariane Lipski quite a bit, but I think Jasmine is definitely better on the ground. She's definitely going to want to get her wrestling going here. Lipski does have decent takedown defense. I think she can stop a bunch of them, but I do see her getting taken down eventually throughout this fight. On the feet, I think Lipski is pretty good. She's probably better than Jasmine on the feet, except for maybe on the power side. I think Jasmine will throw with a lot more intent, a lot more power if this is on the feet. I think Jasmine just has that pressure to not let this be like a clean fight for Lipski to kind of just touch her up with strikes and kind of cruise to a decision. She's not going to let that happen. I think she's going to get in her face. I think if she gets in her face, she can be a lot more physical with Lipski, especially when it comes to the wrestling. I think she definitely wrestle Lipski. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Jasmine. If she's on the feet, I think she'll land the harder shots. Probably not more shots, but the harder ones. And then if she does get some takedowns, which I do see her doing, I think she can rack up some control as well. So, I'm going to go lean Jasmine for this matchup, lean with the Canadian. And, yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, now, next round on the card, we have Aiemann Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. I'm going to go with Aiemann Zahabi. I actually got him as a dog earlier on in the week. I think he's flipped to a slight favorite, or basically pick him in this fight. And I really like Zahabi in this matchup. Now, Zahabi has good takedown defense, and I think a lot of this fight does stay standing between both of these guys. It's going to come down to who lands the better strikes and more volume. And while Pedro Munoz is a pretty high volume striker in general, he does get hit a lot, and it's actually Aiemann Zahabi's striking defense that I think is going to be the key decision maker in this fight. Aiemann Zahabi has pretty good striking defense. I think that's 70%. So pretty high striking defense, and he still lands a good 3.4 strikes per minute. So I think that at the end of the day, Aiemann Zahabi is going to land with more intent. I think he's going to have better defense to stop a lot of Pedro Munoz's attacks on the feet. A lot of it does stay on the feet for this fight. I don't see either of these fighters really going for a takedown throughout this matchup. So yeah, I'm going to go with Aiemann Zahabi to win. I think he keeps it cleaner on the feet, more technical on the feet, has better defense, and lands just a little bit more to get the decision winning out here. All right, next round on the card, we have Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. Now, I'm going to go with the favorite here. I'm going to go with the hometown Mike Malott to win this fight against Trevin Giles this weekend. And I think that Malott is just definitely probably going to be more dangerous everywhere. I think Malott's live for a knockout. I think Malott is live for a submission. Trevin Giles can get knocked out. Trevin Giles can get caught in a submission. So I just think that Malott's going to be a lot more dangerous. This is going to be the main card opener, and I think it does end in a finish. I do think a lot of fights do go to decision, this fight card in general. This is not one of them. I think this one definitely can end in a finish. Like I said, Giles can get knocked out. It's coming off a knockout to Carlos Prates. Nothing wrong getting knocked out by Carlos Prates. He is a demon, but still, he can get knocked out. And then before that, he got subbed by Gabriel Bonfim. And these are pretty good fighters I'm naming out here, like Gabriel Bonfim and Carlos Prates. But in general, Mike Malott should be more dangerous everywhere here. He is coming off a knockout loss to Neil Magny, but Neil Magny is much better than Trevin Giles. So Mike Malott should be able to get this fight done. I'm pretty confident in him. I do like the spot. I think he is fairly affordable as well on the sports books. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, so next round on the card, we have Marc-Andre Barriault versus Dustin Stoltzfus. And I'll tell you something right now. Marc-Andre is a minus 200 favorite. And I'm going to be picking him to win this fight, but I'm not confident at all when it comes to this fight. I can completely see a weird split decision happening here. And I'll tell you why. I think that Marc-Andre can be taken down. And if Dustin Stoltzfus wants to win this fight, he is going to have to go for the takedowns. Now, in his last fight against Bruno Ferreira, he ended up getting knocked out. And he said something very specific in that fight, which is interesting. After the fight, he said that his game plan was to wrestle a lot, and he deviated from the game plan, so he feels like a fraud to his team and all his coaches and stuff like that. So that makes me think that when he comes into this fight, his game plan once again will be to grapple a lot, because that is his path to victory. And considering he made the same mistake last time, I'm curious to think that he's going to be a lot more mindful as to not deviate from the game plan this time and go for a grapple heavy game plan for 3 rounds against Marc-Andre. So Marc-Andre can be taken down on the feet. I think Marc-Andre's pressure boxing should be definitely getting the better of Dustin Stoltzfus, winning the minutes, doing more damage especially. So it is going to be interesting. I think if Dustin Stoltzfus decides to wrestle, locks in on the game plan 3 rounds, that is a path to victory for him. And I don't think he's actually a slouch. I know he's not. He kind of trades wins and losses in the UFC. And then Marc-Andre coming off 2 losses to Joe Pyfer, Chris Curtis. He lost split decision to Chris Curtis. I think Chris Curtis definitely won that fight, though. If I'm not mistaken, 2 judges had a 30-27 for Curtis, and 1 judge had a 29-28 for Marc-Andre. So weird decision on that one. But then he got knocked out by Joe Pyfer. It is Joe Pyfer. He does punch really hard. So, yeah. I mean, it's just going to come down to, can Dustin Stoltzfus do that 3-round wrestling game plan? I don't think so. I think it's easier to pick the other side of Marc-Andre. Maybe defending some takedowns, getting taken down here and there, getting back up, doing a lot more damage on the feet. That is probably the path I'm going to be taking here. But at the end of the day, I'm not confident. I think that the path does exist for Dustin. And, I can easily see a split decision here where one guy has a bunch of control while the other guy does a little bit more damage. So, yeah, Marc-Andre is going to be the pick. Not super confident on this one. All right, now next fight on the main card, we have Caio Machado versus Branson Ribeiro. And I'm actually going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to go with Brenton Ribeiro to beat Kyle Machado. The biggest reason for this is that, I mean, both these guys I'm not too high on, to be honest. But Brenton Ribeiro is the natural light heavyweight in this matchup. Kyle Machado is normally a heavyweight coming down fighting at light heavyweight at 205. And we've just seen this multiple times before. The lower the weight class, the higher the skill level. And I think this has kind of been proven just for a minute throughout the UFC. And I just think that, light heavyweights are going to be more skilled than heavyweights. Middleweights are going to be more skilled than light heavyweights. And that's just going to kind of how it goes in lower weight classes. So Ribeiro is the normal light heavyweight, the natural light heavyweight. I think he's going to be faster than Kyle Machado's regular opponents at heavyweight. I think he's going to be more athletic. If you just look at both these guys' physiques, Ribeiro just looks much more athletic in general, looks like much more of a beast than Kyle Machado. And I do think that, this fight probably ends in a finish, and I think Ribeiro is just going to be quicker, faster to the punch, and I think it's just going to be a skill level that Kyle Machado probably hasn't seen at heavyweight. So I'm going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to go with Brenson. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. Okay, now next fight on the card, we have Derek Lewis versus Jonathan Deniz. I'm going to go with the favorite for this one. I'm going with Jonathan Deniz. He's 8-0. He's definitely a better striker, a better kickboxer than Derek Lewis. I think he can point fight this fight, stay on the outside, definitely catch Derek Lewis with a bunch of strikes, just very technical. And on the other side, when it comes to Derek Lewis, I mean, we know what Derek Lewis is. Derek Lewis can probably, be live for a knockout. I mean, when is he not live for a knockout? And at the same time, if Jonathan Deniz does get wrestled, he's been shown to kind of have a hole in his game. He doesn't really know how to get back up if he does get wrestled. Surprisingly, that's why he beat Carl Williams, and I actually thought Carl Williams was going to beat him because I thought Carl Williams was going to go in and shoot a bunch of takedowns, which he didn't do. I normally don't like betting on someone like a wrestler in the heavyweight division. I don't think that's actually like a lot of the times how it goes down. So I'm going to stick with Jonathan Deniz. He's definitely the better striker, and if Derek Lewis somehow comes in and wants to wrestle, you might see a problem here in this fight. But in general, Jonathan Deniz, most of this fight probably stays standing. I think you can point fight to a decision, or, it's heavyweights, a knockout's always possible. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, now, next fight on the card, we have Rose Namajunas versus Ariane Blanchfield, and we've been blessed with a 5-round fight here to watch 25 minutes of this fight. I'm not going to be looking forward to this. I'll tell you that right now, but my pick is going to be Ariane Blanchfield to beat Rose Namajunas. I think Ariane Blanchfield can get the wrestling going. I don't like Rose. Maybe I'm just super biased, but I don't like Rose. I think that Blanchfield can get the takedowns in this fight. I think she's super live for a submission if she does get the takedown. I think her her grappling is a lot better than Tracy Cortez's and Amanda Ribas, where she's a lot more dangerous once this fight does get to the ground. And I think Tracy Cortez was able to take Rose Namajunas down a couple times. So I definitely think Ariane Blanchfield does get the takedowns in this fight. And I think that, when she gets the takedown, she'll be super live for a submission. So overall, I see Blanchfield winning. I don't like that it's 5 rounds. This is just boring to watch an extra 2 rounds of this fight. But I'm going to fade Rose like I normally do. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, now in our main event, we have Amir Albazi versus Brandon Moreno. This is a pretty interesting fight. This fight does matter for the flyweight division rankings. Amir Albazi is on a pretty decent win streak in the UFC. I think he is undefeated in the UFC. He's coming off of a pretty big layover, though. His last fight was in June of 2023 against Kai Kara-France that he won by split decision. Some people say that fight was a robbery. I don't know. I think it was too close to call it a robbery, but, that was a close-ass fight. He did win by split decision. And yeah, I think that in this fight, I'm going to go ahead and pick Amir Albazi to beat Brandon Moreno. He's becoming a bigger and bigger dog as the days go, which is pretty interesting. I think that it just comes down to where these two are at in their career. I mean, Brandon's already climbed to the top, became champ, lost the belt, and kind of lost again to a contender after that, and Brandon Royval. And Amir Albazi is still on that way up. I think he's still hungry. I think he's going to be more hungry than Brandon Moreno for sure to get the win. So that's kind of a big reason why I'm basing my pick on Amir Albazi, mostly because of where they are in their careers. How, it's just really hard to reclaim that belt. And once you start losing to contenders, how much do you really care to go back and get it? I think that's the spot that Brandon Moreno's in. And when it comes to the actual fight, it's pretty simple. Amir Albazi will have the wrestling advantage, and he will have to use his wrestling in order to get the victory against Brandon Moreno this weekend. And I think Brandon Moreno can get taken down. So we've seen him get taken down multiple times by Pantoja. Now, on the feet, Amir Albazi doesn't present the same threat of striking as Pantoja does, so that is going to be interesting, something to keep in mind. But at the end of the day, I think Amir Albazi can get the wrestling going in this fight. It is 5 rounds. I think throughout the 5 rounds, he does get the wrestling going, and he does beat Brandon Moreno probably by decision. Thanks, guys, for watching. That's going to be all the predictions. And yeah, definitely tap into kopicks.win. That's our premium. It's $20 a month if you guys want to hop in on that. We've been printing units recently, like I said before, up 6 units just from UFC 308, and have had profitable cards, every card since UFC 306 at the Sphere. So yeah, we've been hella profitable on premium. It's only $20 a month. If you bought it, you would have been hella units. much more than $20. So yeah, definitely a very profitable decision there if you want to go ahead and do that. And if not, we also have a free Discord. Join up on the Discord. It's just a community for, talking anything MMA or anything sports betting related in general. We have a bunch of people in there. It's a really thriving community, so that's fully free. Hop in the Discord for free and check out Premium if that's something you want. And yeah, good luck on everyone's bets this week at UFC Edmonton.